Just a quick one before we get into this episode. If you're in the UK and you use supplements, I'd highly recommend checking out Reflex Nutrition, where they're giving up to 40% on all their range if you use the code PTRNT at checkout. I've been using Reflex for nearly a decade, with their microwave being one of my favourite whey proteins. It's grass-fed, hormone-free, and digests so well compared to most on the market. Check out their full supplement range, including all your transformation basics and plant-based alternatives on reflexnutrition.com and use the code PTRNT at checkout for up to 40% off. On this week's episode of RNT Fitness Radio, I'm joined by Puja Teli, who's completely transformed her mind, body and life through the RNT journey so far. After you finish listening to this episode, make sure you read her case study in full, which I've linked in the show notes today. 25 kg lost in body weight is what you'll see in the pictures, but 25 kg destroyed in scars, battles and baggage is what you don't see. This journey is never just about the physical. The physical is the vehicle. Watching Puja transform herself inside and out has been truly incredible. Starting 16 months ago, she's used the coaching and accountability that underpins the RNT journey to shed the skin of her old behaviours, mindset and identity, regain control of her life, and build her confidence from the ground up. She's a new woman in every sense, and in this episode, we go through her why, we uncover her muck, the parallels of the journey to Hinduism, and also how she shifted from not only being a client, but to our business manager too. We finish up with Puja turning the tables on me in a rapid fire, which sparks some interesting discussion on business, further parallels to the 5 phases, and more about the book. So we're 6 weeks into consolidation phase. How is everything going?
It's a welcome nightmare, I'd say, which sounds really weird, but I can't believe I'm here. I really thought I'd give up a long time ago. And the fact that I've done the shoot, I look like I do, is causing me a bit of a crisis. But it's welcomed because it feels like finally I've actually achieved something. So it is fun to be a size 6. It is really good to feel lighter than I've ever felt. But I can't quite stomach the fact that I have done all of this. So I'm grateful for Kunal just being that calming influence on my week every week. But yeah, it's a big thing. It's a big thing to deal with.
What do you mean by crisis?
Because it's a bit of an identity shift. Well, I say it's actually a huge identity shift for me. I was in the state that I was for a very long time. To move away from that in a positive way has been too good to be true. So every day I face the fact that this is my reality now, but I'm still in the mindset of where I was before. It's an overwhelming feeling that I have to deal with day to day. It's even more so because I work with RNT now as well. But it's a good thing and it's a positive thing, and I'm working towards making sure that I believe in it more. It's not as easy as it sounds. You do deal with conflicts every single day. You're trying so hard not to resort back to the habits that you had at the start. You have to remind yourself that the honeymoon period of looking good and feeling shoot, sort of, that mindset you have around the shoot is it's going to go one day. And I actually went the week after my shoot, because I went to Dubai and I faced my reality with all my family commenting on how I looked. And it wasn't always fun to listen to it. There were a few people that said, "Oh, you look great." But the majority of people that saw me had seen me at my other extreme where I was really overweight. And suddenly you're like, okay, well, what do I do now? And if it wasn't for Kunal being there every single week, just calming me down and taking me on that journey, going forward and dealing with the now and dealing with how I should be now, I would have crashed completely. So it is welcomed because it is, it's been a long time coming. But ultimately, there is a crisis here that I need to just calm down and work towards the future for.
What are you telling yourself when the old habits try to come and sneak their ugly head back into your life?
Old Puja. She doesn't exist anymore. So I always say it's version 2.0 now. It's in the vocabulary of the emails that Kunal sends back in his feedback. If there's any sign, whether it's missing a training day or it's not getting my step target or eating off plan because there's no goal at the moment, it's like, well, isn't this old Puja? Thought we moved away from that. And it reminds me that, yeah, I'm in a different place now. That reminder is so key for me at the moment because I am in a very vulnerable state, and I think all clients are once they've reached that point where they look really good. And it's the scooping of the coach, I think, that helps you to make sure that you don't fall back on it.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things, as you've read the book, I say that the key to staying in shape and to maintaining what you achieve is about rewiring your identity, your behavior, and your mindset.
Yeah.
How critical is that?
It's the key thing. It's the only thing you can do, because you can get very swept away with the fact that you look amazing and everyone's complimenting you. And you can ride that wave, but you are then blinded by the fact that your structure needs to be there, your systems can't mess up. Then you need that most then. And I'm learning that. There have been a few slip-ups since my shoot where I'm like, oh my God, I can't I can't do this. I will resort back to the 76 kilo woman that I was if I eat off plan. And, it's a dilemma that you face every day. And it should be that dilemma. I mean, the welcome crisis is a good thing, and you should feel like that, because that's when you're taking it seriously. It's the most important to clean yourself of the hype of that shoot. It's most important to clean yourself of the exhaustion of the grind, because you need to clean yourself of all that you've been through in that process. I went through 14 months of the process phase because I knew it wasn't an overnight thing. It wasn't just me eating differently or walking further or lifting heavier. It was undoing every single insecurity and every single habit to get me to this point. But now it's like I'm exhausted from that. I need to reset myself again and recalibrate and just start again, in effect. It's a new journey now. And when you start a new journey, if you're in a car, for example, it's first gear again. You're not straight on fourth gear and you're just cruising along. You have to start again. That's why I know why you say cleaning the palate again at the consolidation and at the start is so important, because you have to gather yourself up again. If I'm not into football, but every goal scored, what happens once the goal is scored and everyone celebrates? What happens? They all get back to where they're supposed to be. Yeah. They start again and try again. It's the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Didn't expect you to come up with a football analogy there.
Nor did I. Of all the analogies I've come out with so far.
Did not expect that.
No, I know. See, 2.0, it's very different.
So you mentioned 14 months in a process phase. A lot of people listening might be thinking, oh, why is it taking so long?
Yeah.
Tell us why it needed to take so long, and why there's nothing wrong with it taking so long to reach that first checkpoint.
What's the rush? I hear it all the time from certain clients. What's the freaking rush? Why are you rushing to get to a place that you don't really understand? You'll miss the beauty of the process, because it's a self-inflicted struggle, and you understand this as well. The longer the journey, the bigger the struggle, the more you'll value what you have at the end of it. We're in a sort of industry where people are too short-term. I'm not from the fitness industry at all. I only started taking training and all of that seriously when I joined. But I can easily see that people are way too short-term versus long-term. If you're taking time with bettering yourself and getting away from how you used to be, that's not, as I said, it's not an overnight thing. You have to take your time with it. You have to understand yourself. You have to face yourself every day. And for the last 14 months, I've had to face every single problem that I've ever dealt with in my entire life. Now I'm 33, right? That's a long time. And that's a lot of stuff that accumulated to the first photograph that I sent you, which was, I call it a mess, right? She was a mess. She's in past tense now because this is me sort of accepting who I am now. But that's an accumulation of a lot of stuff. And if I spend just 3 months working on just the weight loss, what about all the other stuff that I have to deal with in my mentality, how I look at myself, how others see me, kind of my own brand and my reputation? How do I deal with that? You can't deal with that in 3 months. You barely get started. I spent 14 months eating the same food. The CTP phase, the cleaning the palate phase, where you are told to eat sort of very simple food because you need to sort of cleanse yourself. It's like a detox, isn't it? The first phase is your detox phase. I still eat that, even after my shoot, because I know the vulnerability I had around food is still there. Regardless if I'm size 6, I was size 20 then, I'm size 6 now. I look better now, my back looks good, my arms look good, all of this stuff, I lift heavier, that's all fine, but I'm still vulnerable around food. So that's a long habit to undo. Why am I doing it in 3 months? Why am I not taking a little bit longer? What's the rush? What am I trying to achieve so quickly? It's my life, and I want to understand myself better and understand why I'm vulnerable. What is that trigger? I can't do that in a very short space of time. We often get clients who say, I'm bored of the same foods. Why am I not seeing quicker results? What's the rush? I don't see it. I want to take my time in understanding myself. I spent so long in getting to the place that I was, which didn't serve me well. Now I want to take some time in getting to a place that does serve me well. So it's no harm.
How did you get to the place that didn't serve you well in the first place? You described that first picture as a mess and the peak of the mess. How did you get there?
Wow, that is a big question. So it's been an accumulation of things, I'd say. From the outset, I always say I meant well in life, but I somehow got lost. I don't know whether it's, how do I describe it? So I come from a background which will seem unconventional to society. So I was raised by a single parent. I don't have any siblings, and the majority of my mum's family live in India. And I don't really have an equation with my dad's side of the family. So it's just been about us. And our family consists of 2 people, and that's it. It's just me and my mum. She's struggled, and I struggled to understand where I fit into life. A sense of belonging wasn't really there. And I always felt like I had a void in my life that I needed to fill. So I just used to look at other families and think, there's something missing here. I tried to then fill that void. And this is nothing against my mum either, because she's basically had 2 jobs. She's raised me completely by herself. So nothing detrimental towards her. But I kept looking somewhere else to see what is missing, what's the negative that I need to put into a positive. I thought that would work. I used, as when I got married, that didn't work. That actually almost destroyed me. I was left traumatized by that whole experience when I left that environment. I had to then deal with that, and I thought the void was still there. So in retaliation to the trauma that I faced, where I actually almost ended it all, and the fact that I still thought there was a void to fill, I looked at food for comfort. All the emotions were taken out on food. Dealing with myself, dealing with the day-to-day was just, I looked at food for comfort. I didn't speak to people. I couldn't speak to people about it. I was going through so much mental trauma. I'd have panic attacks all the time. I couldn't communicate what was going on. And for anyone who's had a panic attack, they'll know it's mentally draining on you, but it's physically draining. It affected my body. It affected me so much. I remember certain times I'd have an attack and I'd fall asleep straight away because I was that exhausted. And they were constant for years. I think I had them for about 3 years or so before they slowly stopped happening. And that's a lot of strain on your body. So the food was the only outlet, but it started to feel like it was controlling me again. There was another sense of control. I looked towards it whenever I needed an outlet, to whether it was for grief or whether it was even good things. A celebration would be, let's eat, and I didn't realize how much it was affecting me. But after about 3 years of the split, I ended up being 25-ish kilos heavier. And my health started to deteriorate, and I was falling ill a lot. I'd broken my foot simply because of the weight I was carrying. And it wasn't that I'd fallen over or I'd bashed it against anything. I was a keen walker. I used to do a lot of walking in central London where I used to work. And suddenly I had a swelling on my foot and I didn't understand why. So I went to my GP and he looked at it and he said, "Did you fall?" And I said, "No." He said, "Did you bash it against anything?" I said, "No, nothing." My mum was with me. She's like, "Are you sure? You've forgotten?" I was like, "No, I'm not forget if I bashed my foot." And he said, "Puja, it's a stress factor. It's because you are so big." And I went, "Oh." So he said, "If you don't mind, why don't you get on the scale?" And he's known me forever, so whatever he says, I don't take personally in that way or get offended. And he said, "I've never seen you this big." And that still rings in my head. And I got onto the scale and it was off the charts. I'd never seen such destruction before of myself. And it kind of dawned on me what I'd done to myself at that point. And he said, you've really got to take this on board. And I said, "I'm trying to, but I don't know how to." So he said, "You do realize that if you eat in the way that you're eating any further, in a few months you won't be here." So I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "This is actually suicide." So at that moment, my mum was sitting next to me and he pointed to her and he said, "The sacrifices she's made for you, do they mean anything to you?" I said, "Always. I see it every day. I've been here this whole time when she's tried to raise me on her own." And he said, "What if you weren't here? How would she be?" And there were tears and there was that realization that I was destroying myself. But again, I didn't know what to do. So I felt a bit helpless. So I said, "What do I do? I don't know how to get out of this. I've got a broken foot because of it. I'm killing myself." And he said, "Do you remember the time where you were in that marriage and you voluntarily tried to do it? You voluntarily tried to end your life because of the decision you made. You realized that it was a bad decision to go there. You were slowly moving towards not caring about yourself and destroying yourself. You voluntarily did it there. You're involuntarily doing it now. Do you want a third attempt?" I said, "No, I don't want a third attempt. I don't want to go. I want to actually do something about this, but I don't know what to do." So he said, "Okay, practically, let's get you to a nutritionist. Let's take it a step at a time. Do the walking that you're doing because it's making a difference, but get your foot better first." I just left and I thought, "Oh my God, what the hell have I done?" And I kept apologizing to my mum, just saying, "I'm really sorry." She said, "Just sort yourself out, because if you don't sort yourself out," I thought I'd raised a strong girl and I want you to be as strong as I've been, but not for the negative. I want you to make something of yourself because yes, I've sacrificed stuff for you, but I don't want you to feel bad because of it. I want you to be empowered by it. And so I did go to the nutritionist, but I didn't really take on board what they were saying because all I could think about was eating. Even the reaction to that GP surgery was just to go and take it out on food again. So yeah, it sort of was a big deal. It was an emotional realization, but I still took it out on food again. So I didn't learn the lesson straight away. And then I remember I was watching sort of your Instagram feed, and I looked at RNT stuff, and it seemed very sort of not reachable for me. It wasn't in my reach that I could do this. But I was getting more and more frustrated with myself as to where I'd got to. And I remember the role I was in allowed me to have a good network. So I was invited to this award ceremony where I knew that I'd have to go and buy an outfit for, because it was black tie. And I dreaded that because I looked for the mess that I was. I knew that there wasn't going to be much hope in buying something that would actually be decent enough to wear. So I went to this place, there's a road with Asian clothing around where we are. And it was a British Indian sort of award ceremony. It was quite cool. And I couldn't go before because I'd had the broken foot. So I was really happy that they'd asked me again. But I was dreading the whole thing. And I said, this is not going to work. I was defeatist before I even got there. I walked all the way from my house. So it was about a 7-kilometer walk. I got there and I said to the woman, I need an outfit for an award ceremony. She looked at me up and down. And I was like, okay, she's judging me already. And she goes, come with me. I think there may be something on this side of the shop, which wasn't really reassuring of her. And I thought, okay, this is not going to go well. So I chose something and I went to put it on and it didn't fit. Tried again, didn't fit. It was over my head. I remember I looked like a nun. And I just looked in the mirror and I said, oh my God, what have you done to yourself? How could you have done this to yourself? This isn't you, Puja. And I put my clothes back on and I gave it to her and I said, doesn't fit, doesn't matter. She said, ma'am, this is the biggest thing we have. And she didn't say it lightly. And I said, don't worry, let me just leave. So walked back, had some food again. It wasn't sort of a salad. It was proper Indian food whilst I was on my walk, because that's all I knew. So I knew when I came back, I was like, I don't care if this feels like something I wouldn't do. I've got to sign up because this is my last resort now. I don't want a third attempt. This has to work, right? Because I can't be as I was before. I'm sick and tired of myself being like this. And that's when I emailed you. And it's a long email, wasn't it? Do you remember?
I do remember, yeah.
And I said, please help me because I think you can. And here I am.
What made you think that we suddenly became reachable? What was it that flipped on RNT side that made it accessible for you to use this as the vehicle to 2.0?
There were a few examples, actually. One was, the biggest one for me, I think, was Krishan Khanna. His podcast really hit me because he was told the same thing by his GP about the suicide.
Yeah.
And eating yourself to an early death. And that didn't go away. I think that was the biggest thing to say. If they'd dealt with someone like that, and he's done so well, he did amazingly well. Maybe, just maybe, I can do well as well. But when I joined, I was like, I know me. I don't see things through. I'm still not convinced that it was never a conviction that you guys couldn't help me. That was the thing. I said this to Kunal once. It was never me judging you because it's all online. You know, I'm never going to see Kunal. I talk more to Kunal now because we're colleagues, right? Mm-hmm. Otherwise, I would never see him or actually be able to speak to him because it's all on email. But, you know, people sometimes get unconvinced of that. I wasn't convinced that I'd see it through. So there was a difference there because I knew me at the time. But I did. I stuck with it day to day, just did what I could, was very honest from the start, never hid anything, you know, and got to where I am.
Tell us about the power of coaching in this whole process. How has that helped you in more ways than just giving you the training, the diet, the supplements? How has it helped you uncover the muck on your journey?
The biggest thing the biggest power it's got is that it's made me face myself. So, you know, if you're laden with excuses or you say you can't do something, there is always going to be someone there to question that. And if you're not open to being questioned on that, it makes the coach's life hell, because they need to help you with much more than that training. It's questioning you on your decision making, and it's questioning you on your control of your day. Now I'm finding that much more beneficial. I found it beneficial from the start, but I'm realizing its power much more now in the place I am now, because there's no immediate goal. You know, I've got to kind of recreate the goal now. The next goal is to not go back to where I was. You know, that's a strong enough reason to stick with consolidation and move on to making that, you know, whole lifestyle for myself. But that power that the coaching has is ensuring you don't slip up and don't move back into something that you probably didn't want. I didn't want to be where I was before. You know, I don't physically want to be there. I don't mentally want to be there because it was awful, right? It was destructive. Now, you need a sounding board just for yourself to say, okay, well, how do I get out of where I am right now? So if I every week take the scenario I'm in, how do I move forward? The power of coaching is there, right? It doesn't just need to be your gym session. It doesn't need to be your meal plan or whether you batch cooked, right? How do I decide on which avenue I go to get where I want to be? And you know, it's hard on your own. You can't do that on your own. You can learn to be self-accountable, but someone else's questioning and someone else's, you know, viewpoint will always be beneficial to you. It adds value to your progress. It's never going to hinder it. That's what the power of coaching is. And that's what I've learned. The dude is younger than I am, right? I've never met someone so bloody patient in my entire life, right? Whenever I've just, you know, struggled or had a destructive week, he's like, it's fine. Let's come out of that and remember why you're doing it, right? If he wasn't there, how would I have got to this stage? I wouldn't have.
Yeah, the problem with self-accountability is the ease of self-justifying.
Yeah, the excuses.
Yeah, you can justify why you've had the bad week. If you had a bad week, it's because of this.
Yeah.
You'll be all right next week. Then another week happens. Then another week happens. Whereas coach accountability will tell you there and then, nip it in the bud.
Yeah.
Let's work on a strategy.
Yeah.
On overcoming this. Let's see where your 3 S's have maybe slipped up.
Mm-hmm. And it's a constant sort of, it's a vulnerability as well from the client point of view to open yourself up. But actually you do need to, if you're going to change and you're going to obviously transform and you're not going to go back to where you were, you need to deal with everything that is a problem, everything that is a success, because even the success can lead to a problem as well. Because you might, like, for example, the shoot is that checkpoint and it's that achievement. But I could easily, as I said, ride that wave and just go back to where I was because I didn't take it seriously and I continued on that honeymoon period for too long.
What is complacency?
Yeah.
So if we rewind again, you've now signed up. You made the choice to jump in. How did that initial period go? How did you find him essentially overhauling everything you were doing? How did you gain momentum? And because this was something you tried before but never worked. How did you gain that momentum at the beginning?
So it was funny. So I sort of eased myself in. And I didn't get overwhelmed by it. And the reason I didn't get overwhelmed by it, because overwhelm would have not worked for me at all. So the idea of doing everything on the first day wasn't for me. What I did for the first week is prepped, and I mentally prepared myself. So little things like buying the protein and buying the Tupperware boxes and understanding the gym membership and just familiarizing myself with it. In my first week, I also said goodbye to all the foods that were destroying me and kind of saying my piece to them, the last pizza, for example, and the last mum's cooked food, for example. I did all of that and I was very open about that as well, because I said to myself, I have to say goodbye to these things that killed me, right? I've got to let it go, but I can't do it all in one go.
Yeah.
Because what's the rush? Why am I rushing this? So the first week was prepping, getting everything together, gym clothes, all of that. But it was also enjoying the last food. And then I started meal prepping. I didn't actually tell my mum I was doing this either, because the first thing an Indian mother does, how much is it? How much is this going to cost you? And I didn't want to be swayed by that. So actually what I did in that first week as well, you'll be surprised, I looked at the impact that RNT will have on my life. And I looked at justifying the cost of it. So what I did is I obviously bought a package and I split the cost per day as to how much it would cost me per day from that package. And then I looked at my current habits. I worked in central London. I was a PA and it was a very stressful job. And the more stress I had, the more food I ate. And I was a person that would take food from home because I thought that was boring. So I'd have food from there. And if you work in central London, you know that lunch costs about £5 minimum. I was a coffee drinker, stressful job, lots of coffee. Say we had like two cups of coffee from outside. A decent cup is about £3. So that's £6 on coffee and then £5 on lunch. So that's £11, right? And then all the extras because I binged, right? Say you could spend about £20 on food a day for 5 days in the week. It's £100. Worked out less to have RNT in my life than it did for me to just buy food in central London. And then I looked at the impact you have on my day. So you make me look at my training. So I had to have to go to the gym. You make me look at my steps. You then make me look at my food. And then you make me look at my structure, my strategy, my systems, and how I control my day. So your impact on my day is all encompassing and it looks after my entire day. Whereas the destructive food I had was costing me more and it was not doing me any justice. What's more value for money? R&D. So I said, okay, this is justifiable. So when I talked to my mum about it, right, the cost is justified, right? So I did that as well. And I just eased myself in and I understood that I needed to be open. So I was very open. I mean, my first email to you was a novel, I think.
Yeah, it was.
It was
still the same.
Still the same. And if you ask her now, he'll say, yeah, she writes essays in her check-ins. Why? Because I want to get it all out there. Right? The first few weeks was just explaining who I am and why I am the way I am. Because if I don't tell you, how will you help me? Mm. So it was just being honest, finding my feet with it, taking my time with it. I didn't look at sort of your cleaning the palette article and say after 21 days, why am I not moving on to process? I'll tell you now, I've spent 14 months cleaning my palette because I've undone every single insecurity. I've undone every single bad habit. And I've recognized that they were not serving me well. And I'm working towards getting better at every single thing.
When you were in those early stages, and this probably applies, right the way through to your checkpoint and even probably till now, when you previously reached for food, when you were triggered by your previous triggers, whether it was stress or whether an insecurity popped up or an anxiety, how did you deal with not having the food there? What did you lean to instead?
So it was a lot to do with meal preps, right? So meal prepping for me has been the same all through. And I knew that if I stuck to the same thing every single day and I was able to mark myself green on my check-in, I'd win. It was a difficult scenario because I'm surrounded by Indian food. I'm surrounded by mum's cooking or, just containers full of stuff. So it's very hard. But you have to remember why you're doing it. Now, I was in such a bad way that I went all in on that because I had to just get rid of the shit, you know? I knew that if my meal prep wasn't in my fridge, if the lunch and dinner at least wasn't in my fridge, I would reach for something else. I know my trigger. I knew that was, and I was day by day recognizing that, you know? Yeah, there wasn't really much else that I did. And even now, I know the triggers are still there. I know if I'm stressed or something, I will look towards something else. So I push myself to meal prep. I push myself to ensure that I've got everything in the house so that there is no excuse.
Yeah. This essentially comes down to those non-negotiables, precursors, and decision fatigue.
Yeah.
As your three stages.
Yeah. Basically, decision fatigue is the biggest. I don't want to have to think about food. It's the shifting the thinking.
Yeah.
I was thinking just about food before, right? But I have to shift the thinking to something else because the distraction of food means that it's got control over me. The control shouldn't be with the food or anything else. That it should be under mine. So you have to decrease that control.
I think that's one of the biggest powers of eating pretty much the same thing every day. Not being too experimental because you essentially then just you keep thinking about it. Even to the simple, even if it's not as potentially an extreme example as yours, if we just take just someone trying to be lean and healthy year round, once they've, like for you now, if you have to think about, I've got to buy these ingredients to try this recipe, I've got to do this thing to this thing.
No.
It's just overwhelming. Trying these new recipes, trying these new foods every day. I've got to do this shop this week, this shop next week. Now I've got all these new ingredients. What do I do with it all? It becomes so much, it wastes so much bandwidth. And I think whether you're a foodie or not, you know, like a legit someone who's actually into food, the amount of drain you get from it is just unbelievable. And I see so many people lose control of their days just from zapping their mental bandwidth of picking their foods. Yeah. Even the times of foods, like when should I eat, what should I eat? Yeah. All these things add up to so much bandwidth being zapped, and it just ends up being something you think about.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when we were having a webinar with all our clients, I think a few months ago, and there was a lot of questioning around what type of things to buy for it and adding variety and stuff. I was thinking to myself, I was on that webinar, I was thinking to myself, I know exactly which aisle to go into the shop, the supermarket. I don't need to get confused or like swayed on anything else, right? Don't overcomplicate it, right? Why do you need variety? What is it about the variety and the boredom that you'll get versus actually enjoying the fact that you've won your day, right? The winning the day is my focus. If I shift that focus onto variety wins, but I lose winning the day because I'm much more vulnerable with the variety. And I said to K-Mac after my shoot, I said, I want to bring back my oats and berries, but I don't want to venture out too much because I'm still vulnerable. And, you know, I'll be honest, there have been slip-ups because, you know, at that moment in time, if I use an excuse, it's like, it's fine, I'll deal with it. Yeah. But actually he's going to be there going, what have you done again? Right? You're a step back isn't going to serve you well. You know, he's reminding me of that and he's absolutely right. But I don't need to think about food that much because otherwise it'll control you. Yeah. Why do you want it to control you?
It will control, and this applies to anyone at any stage of the journey, like even for myself. I know I'm not going to eat my usual food, which everyone knows by now is the same.
Well, I know.
Yeah, you brought me those foods just now. If I don't have them, I got to start thinking about it. Yeah. And then it's suddenly like, oh, I've got to think about this, then think about that, and when do I need to get it? Whereas I'm a strong believer that as soon as you pick something you like, and that's the key thing as well, like pick what you like, make sure it tastes good. And this doesn't mean this doesn't taste bad. Like you can make these meals taste amazing. Like they can taste good, they can look good. Yeah. Once you've nailed down on those, just repeat it. And you'll be surprised just how good you feel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with you. And that's why I stuck with the same thing. When I was on lower carbs towards the shoot, you know, it was still the same stuff. I actually want to thank my mum for creating a different type of green curry. but that was the kind of support I needed when I absolutely needed it, you know. But I stuck with the same stuff. And even after, where, you know, carbs are a bit reintroduced, you've got to just realign yourself. I stuck with the same things. I don't need to venture out. If I mess up, it's my doing, right? It's only going to slow my progress even further. Okay.
When you started the journey, you've started to gather momentum.
Mm-hmm.
How are you dealing with the mind games and the constant conflict in your head?
Well, again, I go back to the first photo. I knew I didn't want to look like that. So that was the strong pull. But there were lots of points where I just thought, for God's sake, seriously. I remember going to India before I joined RNT, and I was actually heavier then. I looked so bad. We were hosting this religious event for 8 days in my mum's old village. And I remember turning up and all my family seeing me going, "What the hell have you done to yourself? Why do you look like this? What atta are you eating?" That kind of stuff. And they weren't quiet about it. So it made me feel worse. And I looked at my mum and I said, "I'm not coming back here until I've sorted this out," you know? So dealing with that was awful. But you've got to remember why you're doing it. It is hard. If you give up, what does that say about yourself? What does that say about you? That you're not worth it enough to sort of move past the comments and all of that. So I was dealing with a lot of that. I then realized that if I consistently do something, people will shut up, you know? And then when I went back to India after, it was March last year, and I'd been with RNT. I joined in November the year before, and this was in March, and I'd lost 14 kilos by then. And I'd gone back, and I was, how many dress sizes down? I think I was about 4 dress sizes. I looked completely different. Same people said, "Why are you doing this? What's this? Why are you in this state? Why have you lost so much weight? Don't lose any more." And I looked at my mum and she couldn't stop laughing. And she said, what have you learned from this? And I said, "I don't really like your family." And she goes, "No, that's not it." She said, "Regardless of what you do, right, regardless of how you look, people will comment. So why do you care? They're going to say whatever they like. They've said the exact same thing. The exact same people have said, 'Why are you eating this atta? What is wrong with you?' And so do your own thing. Just focus on what you need to do." It's such mind games, but, you know, that kind of comment from my mum just grounded me. Having the accountability to go now and just speaking to him about all this stuff helped me through it. And you've just got to really focus into yourself, which I've never done before. I've always kind of just been there for other people, just adding value where I can and not really focusing inwards. It's a scary thing. Focusing inwards is probably the scariest thing I've done, because it makes you focus on yourself so much. It makes you realize where you are. And the first thing you see is your shortcomings and where you're going wrong. But if you don't do that, you won't change from where you are to where you want to go. And I really needed to do that. And that kind of got me through all the mind games that I was feeling. The fact that I was meal prepping made me win my week, you know. Going into the gym, if I found a struggle because I wasn't a gym goer before, I'd never really thought about it. But just going in there and consistently trying my best to go in there made it easier each time. Then you had to sort of get into the fact that you're weight training as a woman. There were mind games around that too. Going into that section where not many women are, and there's just big men grunting, lifting weights and making a noise. That is a mindset that you need to shift from, you know, being intimidated by it to finding your feet with it. But I found the consistency helped me there, because if you show up every day, you feel stronger for it. But then there's an additional step when you go into the gym. It's the asking when the person before you is going to finish their set so that you can do yours. It's very easy to go into the gym. That's your first step done. So it's then easier to go to that section. But then standing around and asking a guy bigger than you, going, how many sets have you got left? I want to go next, is a bigger statement to make, but you have to overcome it. You have to overcome your own mindset, to push yourself through. And it's okay if you mess it up, it's only you against you at the end of the day. And I think people forget that sometimes.
How have you grown to value training as a woman?
I adore training, although the consistency is not, I'll be very honest, because I don't hide in this process, as you know, but consistency is still a bit of a thing. But the idea of getting stronger as a woman is really cool, because the stronger you are as a woman in all aspects, the stronger you are for the world. Women need to be as strong as they can be. We're a bit unequal at the moment. You can join a movement for that, but if you're not strong yourself, you can't strengthen that movement, can you? And the idea of lifting your own body weight, the idea of progression is just such a confidence booster. It's so important. Sculpting yourself in a certain way, your physique, shifting away from like how I used to look, and now thinking about how I can get my back stronger, my upper body stronger, just focusing on myself is such an important thing. And it's not to do with sort of cosmetics or beauty, it's just, I don't know how to explain it. It's just that inner sort of strength and nurturing that strength. It's no harm in it at all. And I think sometimes women get freaked out by being a muscly sort of woman or something. It's not. It's just sculpting. It's art, and there's nothing wrong with that.
That's what Arnold said, sculpting.
Did he?
Yeah.
I had no idea. Football, Arnie, what's going on?
Why today then? It's International Women's Day today. Why did you say to me you wanted your case study to be released today?
Well, there's two reasons. One is because I want every woman to focus on my first photo. I don't want them to focus on the second one so much. It's great, right? I know there's been effort to get there, but I want to focus on the first one and say, don't be that person. Don't be that woman. Think about yourself first, and think about if you're stronger and if you focus on yourself, you can be stronger for everyone around you, and you can be stronger for the world. International Women's Day is a celebration of the sisterhood, and it's a celebration of us. Celebrate that by bettering yourself and focusing on yourself. And the second reason is because it's my mum's birthday, and I have met no one who is as strong as her. I mean, if you think about my story, hers is something else, and she doesn't give herself enough credit sometimes to what she's been through and what she's overcome. She's true strength and resilience there. And I feel very blessed. And that void I spoke about, I feel if there's only one regret that I have, is that I thought that there was a void. She's done everything and she's completed everything. There was no void. Family is her. And I wanted to dedicate this to her. The change, the strength, the transformation is so that she can see that I didn't mess it up and that I hopefully made her proud. But I want to focus now on just being a better daughter for her, because all these years focusing on the negative was the wrong thing of me. And I now want to ensure that she's happy and that I'm happy too, so that, we can enjoy life now.
Amazing. You said you're a woman of family. Mm-hmm. You're also a woman of faith.
Yes.
And you've explained to me many times the parallels of the RNT journey to your faith. Do you want to explain? Do you want to explain a bit further?
Should we start the sermon now?
You told me this once before, and
blew your brain.
I was a bit lost, I got to say. So I said you can explain this on the podcast one day.
Okay. So a lot of things in this journey is about cleaning the muck, and just undoing habits and stuff, right? It's also termed as shedding the skin, right? And in Hinduism, which is something I follow, I feel like I'm more faith-driven than religion-driven, and I think there is a difference.
What is the difference?
It's something more introspective, faith is, hence why it matches so well with the RNT journey, and that inward focus that you have, which isn't selfish, it's just introspective, you know, you're focusing on yourself. Whereas religion, I feel, is a bit too commercial, a bit too, I don't know, masala. So shedding the skin is something that I learned to do this year. And you know that. I mean, even in my work where I've had insecurities and stuff, you've kind of helped me just shed the skin of my past identity and move into something different. And if you look at one of our gods called Shiva, he is also known as the destroyer. Now, when you die, we believe in reincarnation, and he is there to transport the soul, it's said, from one body to your new life, because the soul is immortal, right? So it never dies. But you shed that skin of that life to get the new life. Now, if you see any of the imagery of Shiva, he's got a snake around his neck. And what snakes do is they shed their skin and they get new skin. And that's very, very apparent of the RNT journey. And that's why I said that there is a parallel. You are shedding the skin of your past and you are creating new skin to be that transformed person. Now, we look at it in our faith as dying and rebirth, but it's the rebirth in the same life, you know? You don't need to die. Well, a part of me died, you know? I said to you, and I've mentioned it in my case study, that my photo shoot was my wake, in a way, of the old Puja. That's why I felt so heavy that day, and I felt quite, you know, zoned out of it all, because it felt like I was saying goodbye to her. But this whole shedding the skin means that you can actually go to a new identity of yourself, a new place. And I've thought about this a lot. I think I thought about this most when I was on the grind, when I was high steps, and, you know, I was really pushing to get to that photo shoot. And it was just that feeling of, I've shed the skin of my past now. I'm in my new life. And I can now shape it how I want to. And there's so many parallels. The other parallel is a big one as well. It's around ego. Now, we always, any religion you look at, any faith you look at, always talks about good over evil. And evil is, you know, if you look at mythology or anything in the Hindu perspective, look at the Ramayana and look at Lord Ram and the story behind Lord Ram. Ravan, who kidnapped Sita, was seen as a bad person. And if you look at any of the imagery, he's got 10 heads and 20 arms, and people wonder how he turns around and stuff. But actually, he was a very faith-driven man, but his ego was the bad thing. And all this year, what I've done is broken down that ego. It's about breaking down the ego of excuses. It's the breaking down of I can't do something, or why are you questioning me? So it comes into the coaching relationship that you have as well. If Kunal said to me, why are you doing this? And I get annoyed with him, why are you asking me? That's my ego talking. That if I say I didn't do this because, that's my ego talking. So there's a lot of parallels that I found with faith and with this journey around that ego and shedding the skin. That's what I meant that day.
Wow. You talk a lot about shedding the skin. We talk about it in our conversations quite a bit. There's a lot of parallels to that in every journey, really. And
where have you found it?
I think there's a lot in business as well.
How do you see that?
Well, I think every change and level up you go in business, there's a certain shedding of the skin that needs to be done in order to thrive at that new level. You can't carry the old habits in new places. You have to shed the skin of those old habits. Like, for example, the ones you always tell me about, the startup habits and the scale-up habits, right? They're very different and distinct. And there's the situations where I'm still living in a startup mentality when we're in a scale-up phase.
Yeah.
And it's shedding the skin of the startup habits and bringing that level of...
What do you think holds you to those startup habits?
That's an interesting question. I mean, there's a certain level of... I think when it comes back to identity again, and it comes back to habits, and there's a certain joy you have in those habits and that identity. And for anyone who's been in part of a startup phase, they know it's a lot of fun. It's loads of fun.
Yeah.
It's dynamic.
It's a buzz.
It's buzz. It's a massive buzz.
Yeah.
And sometimes you miss that. And if an opportunity to slip back in those habits arises, it's very tempting to do so. And
I know.
I've dragged you in some of those before. Like you came. We'll talk about this in a second. But you came when we were very much in that scared up phase.
Yeah.
But there's been a few times in the last few months where I'll drag you back into the startup, and you're like,
sitting at home, pulling my hair out.
Yeah, you'll go along with it for the night, and then
I'll tell you
the next day you'll like bollock me for it, and for good reason. But it's that buzz, and if we compare it to for your own journey here, the equivalent would be the buzz and the joy you get from food.
Yeah.
And whether it's good or bad, there's still in that very moment, it feels great, isn't it? You have that chocolate bar, you have the sweet, whatever. It feels great at the moment. It's after you see the impact.
Definitely. I mean, just for the record, I don't give Akash bollockings. I just guide him.
Just sends me stern emails.
No, but it's just to remind you that actually, where are you going?
Yeah.
It's for sustainability, because as much as that startup craze, because I've worked with startups as well, it's so much fun. There's such a big hype, and it's never been done before. But you've got to kind of consolidate that and bring it back to our own terminology. Yeah. And you've got to see the longer road. For sustainability of the business, there needs to be kind of a bit of a different approach to it. And when I say these things, it's all in, it's in good faith to look at the longer road before you look at it. And I position myself to do that simply because it's very easy to stay a startup. It's very easy to have that hype, but hypes go. They're phases, they go.
Yeah.
Sustainability is much more important for RNT now. And you've got to look at that longer road. You've got to focus on that longer road and reminding you of that.
Yeah. But even what you're saying now is just exactly parallel to the hype of a photo shoot.
Exactly.
And then moving into sustainability, you've got the hype, you've got to your checkpoint.
Yeah.
But now let's consolidate. Let's see if you can actually build a new person.
Yeah.
That lasts.
Exactly.
And the equivalent is saying, can you build the same business? And this is why in the book I have a section called Reading Between the Lines.
Mm-hmm.
Because the journey isn't just, we list out the 5 phases. These 5 phases, we talk about it in the context of body transformation, but it applies to everything you do. You can apply the same principles, the same questions, the same habits, the same accelerators, everything all applies to everything you do. Business, relationships, career, a lot.
I actually applied CTP, which is the phase where our house is in at the moment, to cleaning our house, because accumulation of clutter happened over the last few years to the point where it's embarrassing. And we look at it every single day going, why have we got to this stage? So I was like, okay, hold on. Non-negotiables, what do we need? Decision fatigue, what do we not need? Why are we doing this? 3 key elements of just cleaning my house.
And precursors.
What
makes it easy to do on a daily basis.
Exactly. And it can be applied to anything. And when I understood the methodology much more, we were looking at how we can sort of get better as a company, how we can make our coaching better. And that's our big project this year. But you were asking me to look at other methodologies to apply to our own sort of systems. And I was like, why? Why are we not applying our own methodology to how we work with RNT and how we make it better than it is now? I'm not using anyone else's methodology here. And I said this to you. I said, I'm sorry, but I'm going to stop that. I'm going to do this. Because actually what we have here is so applicable to everything.
Yeah, absolutely. And that links nicely into discussing your shift from client only to becoming part of the team at RNT. So you started in November 2018 as a client.
Yeah.
And then came on board in the team end of April 2019?
Mid-April.
Mid-April 2019. Yeah. So you've now been with us for, as we're recording this, nearly a year. It'll be a year next month, actually.
I know.
Tell us about the shift you've had there and how... so you lost actually 15 kilos before you came into the team.
Yes.
That's correct, yeah.
Yes.
So you lost a lot of weight. Then you came into the team, and I think for your own journey, the level of accountability went through the roof. Because all of a sudden, I've got all the coaches. You've got all the coaches.
And you.
And you're dealing with me every day.
Every day.
So there's no escape from anything.
No hiding whatsoever.
But just talk about that shift there and how it's been moving from client to part of the team, but also just how this whole journey physically has helped you in your career. Yeah, let's say your career and your work and your work compared to before and what you've done in the past. So
I think the first thing to say is before I joined the team, I wasn't working for about a month because I left my old role. I was a personal assistant or executive assistant to many different people for around 7 years. And that came about after I'd had my trauma of my my marriage and stuff. I realised that I needed a distraction because at that point I had no role, I had no job, I needed to do something, to sort of revive myself. And I became an assistant, and I'll go back slightly further here to someone who's quite notable. And I remember my interview with him, and I explained what was going on in my interview at that point. And I said, I'm going through all this trauma. I don't want to hide anything from you, because if something happens and I'm distracted or I need to not be in the office, at least you know why. It's not because I'm not willing to work. It's because I have all of this going on. And he listened intently in my interview. And I thought, I've messed it up because I've been so honest. And he just said, don't worry, we'll keep you so distracted, right? It will focus your attention on something else. Now, the word distracted was right, because for the next 7 years, wherever I was working, I didn't stay there forever. Whereas I was working, I was dealing with my work as a distraction. I never dealt with myself, which is what I needed to do. And a couple of weeks into that role, I remember Nelson Mandela had passed away. And we all got to go to the memorial service in Parliament. And I was sitting there amongst all these dignitaries. I had the programme in my hand. There were MPs, Lords. John Bercow did a speech. Baroness Boothroyd, the speaker before him, did a speech. The lawyer that represented Mandela at the time of his release did a speech, and it was televised. And I remember sitting there with this programme in my hand, just flooded with tears. And my colleague just pat me on the back and said, it's an overwhelming day, isn't it? And I said, no, it's not that. It's because a few months before I wanted to end everything, and suddenly I'm sitting here celebrating the life of someone who represents freedom in the world. That's what's overwhelming for me. And there have been points where I've been able to be in these situations that have changed me so much and gave me confidence. And going back to sort of what you're asking, it came as a welcome distraction for so many years. It didn't serve me well. Being a PA gave me sort of a network. It gave me so many things. But in January 2019, I said to myself, I was well into the process with RNT. I was losing lots of weight. I'd done so much, but actually I hadn't dealt with myself properly. And suddenly I was dealing with myself. I was looking inwards, and everything around me wasn't serving me well. And I decided to leave the office job. And I said to my mum, I can't work in these conditions anymore. It's a very reactive role. You're at the beck and call of someone else. Whilst all my bosses have been brilliant, it didn't serve me well at all. And finally, I'm with RNT, I'm focusing inwards. I need to focus inwards even more to deal with all the stuff that's happened. So because every decision I make, I talk to her because it affects her too. I said, do you mind if I leave? She said, what will you do? And I said, let's just take a breather. I want to work from home. I don't want to be sort of controlled by a timing that I need to be into an office, in an open plan office, and show up in that way. So she said, yeah, if you can find something, do it. So I took a break and I came back, and you had messaged me because you were looking for someone. I was like, oh my God, it's that law of duality, isn't it? I am looking for something that serves me better, and the company that is obviously helping me change is looking for someone hopefully like me. So I was like, okay, yes, let's do this. And it was I was the only non-coach in the team.
Well, I put an advert out in the Facebook group, and I think you put your hand up.
I did.
You put your hand up, so then I emailed you.
Yeah, I did, because I thought, oh my God, someone's listening.
Yeah.
Someone's actually listening to me. And it just went from there. I remember speaking to you about how much work it would be, what it would be. And it's very different now to what you had advertised, I'd say.
Yeah, I think I said 10, 15 hours.
You did?
I had no idea.
Yeah,
but at the time, it probably was about 10, 15 hours.
Yeah.
And then it just very quickly escalated. And that's when I said to you, look, you got to make your mind up. You're going to keep dipping your toes, you're going to go all in.
And I said all in because it made more sense. And it just fit. It just fit really, really well. But it was the right environment as well, because who better to understand what I was doing with the RNT journey than RNT itself. So I remember being the only non-coach in the team, but it didn't matter. Everyone was really, really welcoming. Everyone takes my opinion on board. It's the same environment that all the coaches make for their clients, which is no judgment, right? Just be who you are and where do you want to go, and we'll get you to where you want to go, but we'll unlock that little bit further in you, which is what you've done with me as well. And I was able to shift away from the reactive, unserving role of an assistant to something that I'm actually really proud of now. And there's old Puja speaking, but there's a weird fear that it's too good to be true and it might be taken away. But, I'll always work 110% in making it work really well.
What do you enjoy most about working for RNT?
God, that's a question.
With RNT?
With RNT, it is the ability to look inwards as a company and say, how can we get better? That whole self-mastery value that we have is our strongest asset, because no one sees behind the scenes how much we focus on each little thing as a group, as a team, every single week. How can we make this better for our clients? How can we make this better so we're performing better? That introspection is there all the time in our team, and that's our strongest asset. But I don't think we celebrate it enough, and I don't think we explain it enough. There is so much in this team, and I'm not just saying this because you're sitting in front of me or we're recording this. It's the best team I've been on, because it's open to judge itself and work towards a better thing. The environment you've created for every one of your team, I've never seen a boss do that before. The control you give me over my own day, which boss does that, right? Usually you have to be at a desk at 9. I didn't fit that mold. And only last week you said to me, Puja, you're a night owl, aren't you? And I said, yeah. He goes, and you said, why are you running away from it then?
Yeah.
Do you remember?
Yeah, because you said to me, I'm going to stop work at 7. I was like, well, why?
It's 10.
Yeah, I was like, you clearly like working in the evenings.
Mm.
You always email me at 1 a.m, 11 p.m. at night.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't get it till the morning, but you were trying to force that morning. And I was like, well, why? Just start later.
Kuno does the same thing. Why are you waking up at this time? What is it about this time? Are you doing it because others do it?
Yeah.
And I sat there and I laughed my head off, and my mum was like, why are you laughing? And I said, I've just had this weird conversation with Akash about the fact that I don't fit this early morning mode or, mode. And She's like, yeah, it's true. I said, but in society's eyes, for up until now in my career, I've always been seen as unpunctual or someone that's always late. And she used to say to me as well, Puja, they'll remember that you came in 2 minutes late, but they won't remember you stayed two hours afterwards.
Yeah.
But I don't fit that 9 to 5 mode. And you've created a team and an environment where I can shape it myself. And I felt an incredible sense of guilt for the first few months. I still sometimes do, that I'm actually starting work at noon.
Yeah.
You know, versus
part-timer.
Part-timer. But yeah, I'm not. But yeah, it's that moving away from that sort of feeling. And you've allowed me to do that.
Amazing. What, just lighten the tone on this.
Thank God.
If any client listening, you'll have come across Puja in some form of communication.
God.
What's one way not to piss off Puja?
Don't stop your progress. That's the only advice I'm going to give today. Do not stop your progress. Why?
What do you mean by that? Be specific.
So I need to cancel me doing this because I've got a busy time in the next 2 months. What? Then I need to stop for 2 months because I'm going away to India. That I don't understand.
Yeah,
and
you called the wrong person. You're telling
wrong
the wrong
person. And I'll explain why. Last March, I went away to India. I stayed in a village, right? There was no halloumi. There was no tofu. It was 45 degrees. I couldn't get my steps in. I couldn't go to the gym because there were none, right? There was nothing. There was nothing on my RNT plan that I could execute whilst I was there. So I had this dilemma and I spoke to Kunal. He said, check in every week, control your weight, and just communicate with me and understand what you're doing day to day. Did I stop my RNT subscription? No. Did I pause? No. What did I do? I stuck with it and I worked with my coach to make it work. The difference after a month being there, and it was warm. I had ice cream. You know, I had force feeding from my Masi, my aunt, you know, because she thought I was too thin and I was dying. You know, all of this stuff was still happening, but I dealt with it. The difference in weight from the day I left and I weighed myself to the day I came back was 800 grams.
Yeah. That's what you call a lifestyle solution.
Right.
People who want to be in the shape of their life for life, they need to be able to go through these experiences where it's not going to be perfect.
No.
Like you have to make progress in imperfect conditions.
Yeah.
And realize that if you want a lifestyle, you have to be able to go away. You have to be able to go through busy times.
Yes.
And learn how to go through it. Not just wait for a clearing. Like, oh, I'm only going to do this when I've got 12 weeks clear.
Oh my God.
Or I'm only going to do this when I'm back from holiday. Well, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, there's no right time.
You have to think, act, and be different.
Yeah.
And you can't do that on select times.
The world's not going to wait for your right time so that you can do RNT.
If you want to shed the skin, you have to be able to do it.
Exactly.
At any time.
Yeah, so don't tell me that you're going to India and you can't do this. Please don't tell me that you want to stop because of the juggling financial commitments. Because to me, I'll go back to the justifying the impact on the day scenario that I had when I started. And I broke down how much impact RNT has on a positive way. I'll think of that too. You know, you're delaying your progress or you're stopping the progress. If you've been in the process for 3 months or 4 months and then you stop, just look back at everything you've achieved in there. Look back at all the things that you're dealing with that you've never dealt with before, the weight loss, the progression in the gym, the step counts. Look at how many steps you've done in that time, right? The clear indicators on your phone. Why are you stopping that progress? What for? How are you going to manage life, right? You obviously came here for something, right? And you want to deal with it. We're trying to unlock a little bit more from you. Don't be freaked out by that. It's just so that you can deal with life when it comes along. I have had to deal with everything this year. And I'm exhausted by it. But I'm not going to stop it, right? Because I know that it's going to take me where I need to be. And there's going to be that constant strive to get better, just to deal with life. because it still needs dealing with. There's lots of things. It's, in fact, these last 14 months has just uncovered what the issues are and uncovered what I have been. And now you need to work on them. You know, it's not just, okay, I've got into the shape of my life. Looks great. Here's the photos. Bye. Don't do that.
Yeah.
Right? How are you going to deal with the rest of your life?
Yeah. That's something I touched on in the book, and that the grind is what identifies all the issues. The investment phase is how you deal with it. Yes. And how you actually build a solution to be able to cope with it.
Yeah, and that's why where's the rush? With investments a longer period of time. If you're rushing all of this stuff, how are you going to mentally deal with the slow investment that you're going to make in your lifestyle? Yeah. So take your time with this. The fact that I've taken 14 months with this, it doesn't faze me that investment's going to be a long time, because I've made this a long time as well. So I know that it's slowly but surely, as Kuno always says to me, chipping away. Yeah. Sculpting. Tell us why the physical has been the vehicle for you. Why is this mission at RNT so important? Oh, my favourite word. Because it's allowed me to deal with myself. I don't think there would have been any other way. The physical was the representation of the mess that was underneath. We had to chip away at all of the weight to get to the bottom of what the problems were. And I can't remember who said it, but your body will be a reflection of how you are. Body's a representation of your mind. Yes. I can't remember who said it, but it's so true. And the only way I could deal with my mind was to get rid of the weight, to get in shape, and just to introspect and inward focus. There's no other way to do it. So how are you planning on using what you've learned to build the future of Teli? What is the future of Teli? The future of Teli. I say Teli because that's what we call her. I've had a few names. Terminator Teli. Oh, God. Gift Queen, Hub Police. Hub Police, Gift Queen, yeah. Oh, God, so many. I just know that if I keep focusing on the steps, if I keep focusing on my nutrition and educating myself around the food, I know if I keep going into the gym and seeing the visual progression of weight training and my physique and stuff, I know that there is so much inward focus in that alone that it will help me continue to focus in other aspects of my life. So, you know, when you say we talk about certain things, I always bring it back to weight training. I said something about sorting out what's there at the moment. I can't remember what the thing was in work, but I said sort out the thing first before we move on. Get the form right before you add weight to the bar. Yeah, I said that. Do you remember? Yeah, you do, yeah. And why would I say that if I didn't know that that's also representative of me going into the gym and sorting out my form before I can lift heavier? Yeah. It's so important. It's so important that, and it's so weird that all you need to do is inward focus. Focus on yourself, focus on your physical self to be able to sort of just ensure the rest of your life's on point. Yeah, it's the foundation. Yeah. That's why it's the vehicle. Another analogy for you. The main one. So you said you have some rapid fire. Do you still want to do it? Yeah. And whatever you ask me, I'm going to ask you back the same thing. Okay. So, oh God, you're going to love this. Hold on, let me get it out. We'll finish on a lighter note. I don't know. They could be. I don't know if they're light questions or. They're a mixture. Okay. I think they're very. Hopefully, you don't catch me on guard like Jana did. There are only 10 because it's rapid fire. Okay. 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 Number 1. What is your biggest pet peeve in life and with clients? And with clients. Yeah. Or is it a mix? Okay. In life, generally. Lack of structure. Yeah, that's so you. And with clients? With clients, excuses. What's the most annoying excuse just to go off the? Time. Time. Goes back to structure and all that, doesn't it? I've just seen too many. I've worked with too many people who've had too many extenuating circumstances
to warrant that as an excuse.
Okay.
Just can't see it.
Yeah. Okay. Do you want me to answer the same question?
Yeah, go ahead.
In life, I've got two. Loud chewers. I can't stand people that chew loudly.
Yeah.
And mansplainers.
What was that?
Mansplainers. Men who think they know better.
Oh, okay.
With clients, I've already said, we won't go through that again. Yeah. Don't stop your progress. Okay, number 2. I can't really answer this one myself.
Okay.
You'll see why. Apart from hiring me, what was your biggest highlight of 2019?
Oh, that's a big ego attached there. Biggest highlight of 2019 in the business?
Well, anything, really.
I would say it was having the business in a position where I could take 3 days off. And not because I could take 3 days off. That wasn't the point. It was the fact that I could do it. And that just, for me, that created a sense of security and freedom that I didn't have before. Whereas before, I was always chasing my tail.
Mm.
That gave me, and not to say that I do that often. I don't think I've done it since probably. But that just gave me, the work I had to do to make that happen was the biggest highlight. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think I said to you the other day, like, what would I have to do to take a month off? And I don't think it's not the concept of taking a month off. It's what I have to build in order to do it.
Yeah.
And it's the same principle applies here.
No, that's good. That's good.
That, and I'd say starting the book was a big highlight. Like, that was something I wanted to do for 10 years, and making the decision to do it in the final quarter and actually following through on it and doing the majority of the work in the end of 2019 was a huge way to end the year for me.
Awesome. I've got a question about the book, so I'll stop there. Okay, this question is quite funny. What the hell do you mean when you say the following? Okay. Pulling the pin, dropping the hammer, and spinning your wheels.
Okay, so the first two are the same. Pulling the pin and dropping the hammer is the same thing. So it comes from when I give the instructions that you're about to go on the baguette grind, or now we call it the grind because not everyone can have the baguette grind. Just when you're about to go in, you get the instructions, and it'll be something like, "Okay, we're gonna drop the hammer and pull the pin now." And it basically means we're gonna throw the kitchen sink. That's another one there. And throw the kitchen sink at you. So that means, high steps, lower calories, basically hard work.
Okay.
And it's just going for it.
Okay.
And then spinning your wheels it's slightly different. It's completely different. It's about the person who is putting in all the effort but getting nowhere. And so if you're spinning your wheels, you're trying all these different things. You're stuck in paralysis by analysis. You're confused. You're jumping from one thing to another, but you're never really sticking with anything, and you're not actually getting any results. So it's not spinning your wheels would be having a plan in place and being able to execute.
So do coaches stop the spinning?
Exactly. Yeah. Coaches stop the spinning.
Okay, awesome.
That's why I always talk about, when I do my Transformation Tuesday post, and I always say that person was spinning their wheels before, because a lot of people are yo-yoing, rebounding, dieting, trying all these different things. They're not getting anywhere. And really, they just need structure, strategy, and systems with a blueprint and accountability, and they'll get where they want to.
Wheels, journey, vehicle.
Yeah, it's a car.
It's a car. Okay. Number 4. When you get married, what Bollywood track will you be dancing to at your wedding?
Oh my God.
If you don't know, I can tell you some.
Okay.
Afterwards.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that one.
Okay, number 5. How many times on RNT Fitness Radio do you think you've said the word Segway?
I don't think I've said it today.
I know.
I don't think I've said it today. There was one point where I could have said it.
I know.
Where just when we went into the your role in the team, and I was gonna say it, but I think I said that links nicely.
Yeah, you didn't even say.
I didn't say shift gears, or
no.
I didn't say Segway. So I'll probably have to use that in the introduction here. But you haven't calculated, have you?
No, the answer is way too many.
Okay.
Okay, what is your favourite fruit?
Mango.
Why are you discriminating?
Or Sharon fruit.
Okay.
Sharon fruit's made a big comeback this year. And
is it cooler this year?
It's now out of season. I was actually really upset when it went out of season. It went out of season on the weekend of the second weekend, 7th, 8th of February. They suddenly just stopped selling it in all supermarkets.
What's the other way of saying Sharon fruit?
Persimmon.
Okay. Why are you discriminating against all the other fruits?
Why? I don't know. Is that a trick question?
Yeah. Okay, better question. What is the strongest thing about Team RNT?
Our culture.
Why?
It's exactly what you said, that strive for self-mastery and the constant inward focus and looking at ourselves, whether it's coaching, whether it's our systems, or whether it's our culture itself, and saying, how can we get better? How do we go from good to great? How do we make this the best place possible? How do we give the best possible service to our clients? How do we get the best results? Constantly asking that question, you will find the answers. And yeah, it can be difficult. It can cause difficult conversations. It can have heated arguments, heated debates. We've had plenty of heated debates.
Many.
That's normal and that's encouraged. And I have never worked in that environment before. Like, I've been in environments before where your wings are clipped and you're told to shut up and
just get on with it.
Yeah. And it's very much a dictatorship. There's nothing like that. This is an improvement culture from the bottom up, and everyone has an opportunity to contribute and look at ourselves and say, how do we get better? Because if you accept that you're already there, you're about to go.
Yeah.
And it's that constant strive for self-mastery, whether it's your body, whether it's your business, whether it's your relationships, whatever it is, it's that strive for self-mastery that is what defines our culture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Number 8, you're releasing your first book this year. What has the process of it done to your outlook for RNT?
Well, it's formalized the entire journey for me. Going through the journey of writing it was almost like going through the journey of RNT. I can draw. I've already said the parallel between it, right? The parallel is already there. You can apply the 5 phases to the book, but writing the book and the process of it formalized everything that was in my head around the journey, and just put it into a structured format. And now it's like crystal clear. And I think you guys have all read it. All the teams read it. Well, you read the draft. I don't know what the editing is coming out next week.
Yeah.
Probably on the day of this podcast being released. So hopefully it's not too different. But you've read what it's pretty much going to look like, and it's just crystal clear now. And I think the way it changes the outlook for RNT is that anyone who reads the book, and especially anyone who's part of RNT, will just have a crystal clear understanding of the blueprint and the path that lies ahead. Like what they need to do at each step of the journey. How do they get to the next phase of the journey? Yeah. Why each phase is so important, and why there's no real endpoint, and why it's a continuous strive towards self-mastery.
Moving away from just these questions for a moment, how have you sort of found the complexity of writing a book, and how have you dealt with the rest of your day-to-day? Because we talk about this all the time, and I've worked with people that have released books before, and I knew what was coming for you. And I mentioned it to you quite a few times. Just remember the rest of the day-to-day, try and change how you do it, because this will be all-consuming. Yeah. What have you learned from that? And I know you want to write more, because, how will you change how you take it on next time?
Yeah, I mean, I think the early stages, writing the first draft was the easiest bit. Like that was, I look back as a piece of cake. It was just me. It was like me writing an article every day.
Yeah.
There's no real thought about the complexities of writing. It's just writing. It's easy. It doesn't take up too much mental headspace. But when it got to the editing stage and getting into the second and third drafts, that's when it just like took over my life. And I think
the beard got affected.
I didn't go for a haircut for 5 weeks. And I was on the cusp of redlining like multiple times.
I know.
And I think you said to me, don't book anything for the last 2 weeks of January, because that was my deadline, 31st of Jan. And I was getting all these requests to speak at the end of Jan. And I said, and I was trying to fit them around. And I don't know if you were stalling the emails coming to me or what.
I was.
But I decided to listen to you and not do it. And I'm glad I didn't, because I remember saying to myself, there was no way I could have done any speaking this week, those last few weeks, because all I was thinking about, and I can only edit for like 2-3 hours a day in the morning, but that editing was worth like 10 hours of work. I talk about the MEUs, right? That zapped everything. And then I had to, then there's the actual case of like doing what I normally do, right? Which is, publishing the articles, the podcast, the actual running of the business.
Day to day,
and I don't think I completely underestimated the mental drain on the editing. So I don't know what the next stage of editing will be. I can't see it being as hard as that bit, because that one was like another shedding of the skin per se.
Yeah.
But when I do it again, it will be, I'll just take that into account a bit better.
Yeah. Do you see, I mean, is there any parallel to see as a coach how your clients are in there? Do you know what I mean? So
yeah, like letting the ego get in the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, I can do it all.
So would you say that was an ego?
Yeah, it was me thinking, I could do everything. Yeah, part of me was like, when you told me, part of me was like, well, how do you know? You haven't read a book. And I was like, that ego came in. And then obviously I remember telling you, I was like, I don't even know if I told you. I think you asked me because I didn't want to tell you. Like I was getting all those symptoms. I usually get my palms are sweating.
Yeah.
I was walking. I remember I was walking and I was feeling like hot. It was freezing outside.
I recognized
so
it.
hot.
No, I recognized
my palms are sweating. I was like, I'm gonna vomit. I felt like that. And then I went to the cinema and it was fine. But
the reason I asked you, and it was actually quite recently, obviously we look at our productivity and our timings a lot, you know, and you're very open to that as well.
Yeah.
And when I joined, it was just after your actual burnout issue.
Yeah.
And, you know, in preparation for the role, I didn't just obviously look at how admin prone I am or anything like that. I kept listening to your podcast.
Yeah.
When you spoke about it so openly, because I wanted to get into your mindset as to why this was happening. And when I asked you recently, did you see a red line again this week? I asked you, didn't I? And you said almost.
Yeah.
I'll be very honest with you. I take that as a bit of a failure on my part because we've done really well this year in terms of unlocking freedom and timing for you so that you can lead and you can focus on the future of this business. But if you're still seeing a red line after a year of me being here, I take huge responsibility of saying, actually, we're not where we need to be. Hence why I've asked you, what's the next stage of how you'd want your week to be? The reason I therefore ask you now about the future books is because if you do what you did this time, it's going back to self-mastery again. Yeah. What can you do better?
Well, what that's actually triggered is... I don't know how relevant it'll be for the podcast, but you know, like I've got on my thing to do for the next 2 weeks, and it's not a 2-week task; it's longer, but it's a start. It's to just like do what I did before, really dial in on my day, and just eliminate a lot of things again. And I've done that quite a few times, but it's constantly evolving because of these. You end up just what used to be really highly valuable for you is now like gets lower down.
So you're cleaning. The palette
you got to just keep cleaning the palette, and I think that's just getting to the position where ultimately it might just be that I just write.
Just practicing what you preach when you tell your clients to just recalibrate and look at their days.
Yeah, no, it's exactly that. I mean, there was one week, I think you're talking about, I think I tracked 30 hours of just book writing.
Yeah, you did.
Only book writing. That's a lot of hours. That's 2 jobs.
But that's also an achievement from where you were last year, where you were sort of almost burnt out.
30 hours of admin.
Exactly. And I remember when I started, I said to you, you said it's 20 hours. You said to me, do you remember?
Yeah.
So I wasn't full-time at that point. You said 20 hours. And I remember sort of, we were doing a Zoom call and I said to you, but what are you going to do with the 20 hours I give back to you? Do you remember this?
Yeah.
And you looked at me and I said, if you're going to focus 20 hours on just work again, well, what's the point of me being here? You might as well just do this work.
Yeah.
Dedicate 10 hours of those 20 that I'm giving back to you on something not work focused.
Yeah, I think I've done that though, because if I look at my average toggle, it's gone from, I'd say it's around the 60 mark to around like the 50 mark.
Yeah.
So it's that 10 hours is back.
That 10 hours is back.
It's probably from Saturday.
When you had a Friday where you weren't working, you sent me a voice note going, just taking Friday off and I haven't done this in 2 years. And I felt like, yes, this is working. I'm adding value, you know. Yeah. And it you just need, even look, you're the founder of the company. You even need to be sort of reminded that it's okay to switch off. So it's no different from a coach saying to you, why are you doing this in this way? I mean, I've just spent the last couple of minutes asking you questions about your day. There's no harm if you're willing to take that feedback. There's no harm in taking that feedback, even if you're the leader of the company.
Yeah, I mean, you said earlier, what's been your biggest thing of 2019? I think the thing that comes to that 3 days, I think what the bigger thing is behind that is the team. Like now we have a team. I think that's my biggest achievement of 2019 because in order to do that, there needed to be a team in place.
Yeah.
And they didn't have that this time last year.
No.
There's just 4 of us. Well, actually, I was releasing this, so there was 6 at the time, but let's just say at the start of last year, it was 4. So that would be the biggest achievement of 2019.
Mm. But learning, even going a bit deeper there, the learning to let go of it as well, isn't it? And
Separation anxiety.
Yeah. Okay. Couple of more questions very quick. Short-term gains get people nowhere, right?
Yeah.
What's the biggest piece of advice you'd want to give anyone who joins us in 2020?
Play the long game.
Yeah.
Go through the 5 phases. Don't skip it short and tell yourself that you do well just reaching the checkpoint, or you do well just reaching the checkpoint and finishing consolidation. That's where the fun begins. Once you come out of consolidation, that's when you're in a prime position to actually build the body, the mindset, and everything you probably wanted at the beginning for life.
Okay.
So get past consolidation and then let the journey really begin.
Mm-hmm. Final question.
Yeah.
Akash Vagela, who should we have on the podcast next?
Well, you know who my dream guest is. It's still Arnold Schwarzenegger. You tried, to be fair to you got me 2 of his agents, but one of them bounced back and one of them ignored me. So I don't know if they were the right ones. But
look, at least I tried and
the try helped.
Yeah. I meant well.
Just let's finish up on you and just ask one question. What's one thing you can tell to anyone starting their journey?
Be open to feedback. Be open to just dealing with who you are. Be open to deal with the fact that you are a certain way now, but accept the changes that come along the way and accept each of those points in that journey, because you can go and progress in the gym. You can do all the usual things that any body transformation can give you, but you have to really, really focus on yourself. So just be prepared to know what that looks like.
And just to finish off, how's RNT transformed your life?
It's not transformed it, it's saved it.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for being here today on this episode of RNT Fitness Radio. I'd love for you to do a quick little favor for us. Please head over to iTunes and give us a 5-star rating, leave a comment, and share it with your family and friends. If you're interested in learning more about how to transform your body and positively change your life, go to www.rntfitness.com and explore all our free content on offer. Thank you.